Hey everyone, Joe Menza here, and this is the other snow scene that I had put up that I had said I'd be doing for you soon. And this one here is another snow scene. This one here I did on 140-pound Fabriano Studio. This here is 25% paper. It's not 100% cotton. And I've sprayed a little yellow ochre in the middle, and I've put some, just experimenting with some different things here, and some ultramarine blue, and I'm blending that together, giving it a little shot with some clean water, and just kind of blending this together. I'm always trying to come up with some different ways of sort of doing skies that, skies are the most challenging things that I think in the painting. It's kind of a make or break type thing. And the important thing is to kind of do them as casually as possible and while it's still wet. And I like sort of doing the spray bottle combination. It tints the paper in a way that the brush doesn't, and it just works out kind of nicely, I think, and allows for some blending of things. I've just used a little bit now of a little bit of Payne's gray mixed in with the ultramarine to get that sort of 3-layer effect. So we've got the light from the middle. I'm always going for atmosphere and light when I do these things. Atmosphere, light, shapes, and texture. That's sort of the thing that I'm trying to keep in mind when I do each painting. Okay, so the next thing that I've been sort of working on is doing water. There's a couple of different ways you can kind of, sideways stroke it in. The other thing I've been doing is I've been taking the brush and I've been sort of doing vertical strokes downward in this manner, and sort of varying the dark and light so that the water looks like more reflective. I know when we do reflections of trees, we try to do a downward stroke of the brush with the darker color from where the tree would leave a shadow, which I'll show you. But I've tried to, in this one and the last one, and that's why I put it up. The last one was another winter scene. It kind of had an, reddish orange effect. In these two, I've been experimenting with this, doing this watery, like a pond here, and taking the colors. In this case, they'd be reflective of the sky. Okay, so we have the yellow in the center, and then we have the blue, and then the darker gray of the clouds. So by doing a downward stroke and varying up those colors, it makes it look like we have a reflective pond, even before I've put any trees or foreground elements in. And you'll notice if you haven't watched the last video, watch that one and you'll see how I've done that one with different colors. And here I'm doing just very lightly, I'm going a sideways stroke across. If you've ever watched like Bob Ross, those guys, they take the oil painting and they go down and then they go across, and then it looks like it's a blurry version of what's on top. Now, it's a little more difficult to do that with watercolor because we're not working with oils, obviously, but it can be achieved to some degree in watercolor. Okay, so now that we have that water in there, I'm going to go ahead and put some trees in here, and you'll notice I've been doing more pine trees. There's something about pine trees that just, to me say kind of winter. Maybe because they're kind of Christmassy looking, I don't know, but I've gotten out the small fan brush here and just doing the shapes, as I said, and go with like a darker greenish blue here cast against the sky, using the ultramarine blue, lemon yellow, and Payne's gray. That combination gives you the greens that you're going for. Now, a little bit more water on the brush for the center trees, and you'll have a more faded version of the trees, which will look more distant. I've been looking a lot at pine trees lately, and some of them are very full. I don't know, I tend to make my trees more full. We should probably just do a tree video and go over like some different ways. Maybe I'll take some pictures of some trees and we'll go over some different ways. But, when you're out and about, look at various trees and kind of just retain them to memory. Some pine trees, you can really see the branches quite a bit. And some pine trees, they're really full. I tend to make mine full, maybe because I have a tendency to overdo it a little bit, but you want to see those branches, Once you have the shapes, then, the mind will do the rest and fill in the blanks. But now, my goal here is now I want to leave white for our snow area. So I want to leave plenty of white. If you don't leave enough white, you can always pull out, a tube of titanium white. Now here's where the spray bottle comes in handy. You can give it a little zap, as I've done here with the yellow, and you can warm things up a little bit, and you can get a little reflection off of the snow without necessarily hitting it with the brush and overdoing it. And that's lately why I like to have these spray bottles handy, is if I can just, like sometimes I'll get in the middle here, we've already put in our trees for the distance. And if I look at it and I say, I wanted a little bit more yellow, or it's starting to dry back a little bit. Well, how can I get more yellow in that middle area without disturbing anything? And that's one of the areas where this spray bottle I've really found is a great asset, in that if you want to warm things up, you look at the painting and you go, well, gee, if this was just a little bit warmer here, that yellow, it just dried back more than I wanted, or maybe I want to get it warmer toward the orange or red side, and those colors dry back quite a bit. Well, then you have your little spray bottle filled. So you have a spray bottle, of course, with plain water in it, which is always handy, and then you have a spray bottle with yellow, your primary colors. You have a yellow, a blue, and a red, something along those lines. And then you can give it a little spray. And they need to be bottles that spray finely. Have a blank piece of paper and just practice with it. They will blob out a little bit, of spots. If you do it far enough from the paper, it's not the end of the world. I don't mind some little dots on there. It's kind of adds a little character to the scene. And plus, when you step back from your painting, 5 feet or so, you're not even going to notice that anyways. So now you've noticed I've taken the same tree colors and I've added those to the pond. I've darkened that up a little bit to get that reflection quality from the trees above. Because obviously when I put in the pond, I didn't really know where I was going to put the trees, being that I did the pond first. Now that this is dried, I don't really like the center trees. They don't really look defined enough. They look a little too strangely shaped. So I'm coming in with that grayish green, more water on the brush, but this time I'm just defining them a little bit more. It's okay because they're still lighter than the rest, but they just looked oddly shaped and almost a little bit too light. So it's okay. I mean, you can go back over that stuff. One of the things you want to be, aware of, and I'm going to go ahead and add another tree over here. It just seems like sometimes it seems a little off center if you leave too big of a gap on the side. Yeah, that looks a little bit better there. So I think it's shaping up to be a nice scene. As always, I do thank you, patrons, for your support. I try to make sure that I have videos for patrons before I do my regular YouTube. I haven't been doing as many over there. Some videos end up getting edited out, and you guys get the longer videos with more step-by-step information. And I try to put out a video every week here on Patreon. I did have one person, on Patreon you have people that come and go all the time. And, usually they'll fill out the little exit surveys as to what they thought, was lacking or, whatever. Usually people say financial reasons why they, they leave, which is fine. I was a Patreon of many different artists over time. And of course, people jump around, stuff like that. I had one person put on there that I wasn't as active as they expected. Hopefully, you're good with a video every week. I want to put out as much content as I can, but I try to get one video at least every week. And if you ever feel like something's lacking or there's something you want to see or whatever, let me know in the comments. I'm happy to oblige. I want to keep the Patreons feeling like they have as much content as, they're getting their value for, while still supporting my endeavor to inspire people, encourage people, and, keep this whole journey sort of concept going. And you can always jump over. We got the Facebook for the Ron Ranson group. And we have a lot of encouraging people there and a lot of sharing of information. And of course, I'm there as well. And if you want to jump on over, I know some people on Patreon now have made their own Facebook page so they could have their groups come and discuss things there, because Patreon took away the ability to have sort of like a community page. But I'd rather, since I'm a group, that group is so good, we have almost 1,000 members on Facebook, and Ron Ranson being sort of the inspiration, the simple big brush, hake brush. I think that'll pretty much meet your needs there if you want to have a community environment and be able to share your paintings and go over materials and technique. And as I said, I'll be there too. And that's a great group. I think you'll have a really good time if you come on over there. You have to fill out some questions just to make sure for entry, so we don't have people coming in that are not interested in this particular type. We don't do portrait paintings or things like that. It's this very style here that I find enjoyable. And you can come on over and have a good time. So here now I am doing some sort of grassy stuff here. I'm just kind of trying to frame out now this pond. And I'm using shades of blue that are within the spectrum of what we've done in this painting. And I'm going a little bit darker with it because it should theoretically be closer to us. When we build a painting and we get to the foreground, we want the, how can I explain this? We want the painting to look like it's across a plane In other words, you're standing in one spot and you want it to look like it's going from your field of view where you're standing to the horizon. And if we don't, it's very easy to make something look like it's on the side of a hill from a perspective point of view. We don't want it to look like something's falling off a cliff. We want it to look like, just like the pond, if I didn't build this grass around it, it would look like it was sideways. It would look, kind of funny. So we're wanting this to look like you're looking, when you're standing in a field, you're looking from your perspective down to the horizon. So the plane of view should be from your eyes down, across until you see the horizon of nothing, as far as your eye can see, as they say. As opposed to, it would look like maybe this water is dripping down the side of a hill. So that's something to keep in mind from a perspective point of view. And that's why we look at things of distance. In other words, darker things being closer and then lighter things being toward the back. So I've got out my flat brush and I've put some white on there. Now you can use white gouache, you can use titanium white. There's Chinese white, there's titanium white, there's white gouache. And people say, what's the difference on these whites, The Chinese white, it's more transparent, whereas like the titanium, there's zinc white. And then you go into your gouache. The gouache is more opaque. So when you cover things up, it's not going to be as transparent if you're looking for a transparent white. So let's say you're painting something in the distance and you want to use the trick with the white to kind of either spray it on or brush it on. You're going to want something transparent-y, where like a Chinese white would be probably preferable. And then if you are painting like snow, or let's say you're going around, like you paint a figure and you want to put a little white around them or around things to highlight them. In that case, you're going to use probably like a gouache. I've experimented with all of them, and the difference for me is when I use like the Chinese white, it fades back more. So if you need more of an intense white, you're going to be looking more toward your gouache. And you'll see here with the bushes and trees and grass that are going around this lake, I'm going to take a bit of that white gouache and highlight the trees to make it look like, there's snow on there. It's hard to leave, you can leave white in a lot of places, but you can't really leave it everywhere. And I'm not a masking fluid person, so I'm not discounting masking fluid, but the couple times I used it didn't work out for me. I'm just not a masking fluid person, but so you won't see me using that a whole lot. It's expensive. Every aspect of it has not been good. I had a bottle that I paid probably $15 for, and I used it a couple times, and then a couple times I went back to use it again, and the bottle was dried up. And one of the times I used masking fluid, it wasn't 100% dry, and it just was a bad experience all the way around. But lately I've been trying to leave more white in paintings. You'll see that in some upcoming paintings. I'm trying to really, because if you're doing like landscape pictures and you leave little bits of white throughout the foreground elements, it does have a nice impact to it that I'm really starting to like. So in future videos, you'll see how I've been trying to work that in. So I don't know what it is toward the end of these paintings. A lot of times, like you'll see now, I just gave it a little bit of a spray with my continuous spray bottle. I like to kind of spray the painting with water very lightly, toward the end just to kind of, I don't know, it just, for me, it adds a little something. I can't really put my finger on it. It does kind of like a little blending and makes things stand out a little bit. I like to give it a blast as I kind of get toward the end and help keep it wet, you know. Now here, I'm just kind of continuing the grass between the two little hills. I just feel like it needs a little connection there, continuity. That's another thing I've noticed. If you watch like guys like Alvaro Castañeda, if I'm saying his name correctly, a lot of times when he's painting things, he talks about connecting elements. And everything he paints, like he connects the car to the side of the road, to the street, to the person. And I think there's something to that, making sure everything in the painting is connected so that you don't have something sort of look like it's stranded or independent and stands out on its own. So everything having a little connection to one another, the trees to the other trees, to the lake below. There's something to it. And it's something to definitely think about. So now I'm giving it that little spray. I'm looking at the yellow here, and I want, you know, if you've ever been outside during the snow and you look down at the snow, you see how the snow reflects the light. And it has, you know, if it's yellow sun out or something, the snow kind of has a little bit of a yellow cast to it. I thought that would be kind of interesting to not just have white, but to kind of reflect. So if you're doing a little bit of an orangey sky, you could have a little bit of that on the ground. You know, some people like to do a lot of shadows. I'm not a really super shadow guy. A lot of times I feel like when you start putting shadows in, the shadow becomes like the focal point of the painting. And it can be really cool and effective, but it sometimes it just takes away from the picture to some degree. But if you are going to do shadows, you want to do sort of that bluey, you know, purple kind of effect. I was looking at snow the other day because it had snowed here, and it has a bluish cast to it on the snow. So it might be something I might do in an upcoming video. I'll start messing with shadows a little bit because I know people are interested. And again, if there's something, you know, let me know in the comments. I don't get a whole lot of comments for the patrons that I have, but you know, I want to make sure I'm, you know, meeting your content needs here. So let me know. And I try to do a video every week. So when I do the video, you know, I film and then I narrate so that I make sure I'm, you know, hitting all the things I was thinking about as I was going. So just, you know, let me know in the comments. So we're now in what I like to call the final details phase. This is when I kind of look back and I think, is there anything I can do to kind of shore things up? A little dab of this here and a little dab-a-doo-ya of something here. You know, fixing a tree or, you know, I think I once got into this in a way. In the beginning, I never tried fixing paintings. I always thought you get what you get on the paper and that's it. And then, I don't know, there must have been a point when I started getting annoyed with certain things to where I thought, well, the painting's wrecked anyway. And I thought it was horrible, and I'm going to try to fix this. And I thought, oh, you could do this, you can lift this, or you can do this here. And that turned out pretty good. So I kind of started becoming the fixer in that I would constantly be like, okay, add a little water here, and I could fade this back here. So in a sense, it's like the first half of your painting, you spend sort of laying things out. And then the second half, you spend correcting in that mindset. It shouldn't always be like that, but it kind of is to a degree. Because that's what we're looking at it as artists in our own critical eye. So that's it for this painting. I really do hope you enjoyed it. And there'll be many more paintings to come, usually, like I say, on a weekly basis. Let's take a look at this, how it looks in a mat. So there it is on my art table here in my own mat. Kind of like these black mats. And here's a little closer shot. And I flicked it with a little toothbrush to give it that effect you saw. And that's the painting. Thank you so much, everyone.